Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we're bringing you day 402 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. As always, with former advisor to the Office of the President Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel Olexiy Arestovych, and Russian opposition politician Mark Feygin. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It is Saturday, April 1st, by the way. Time is 10 p.m. in Kiev, same time 10 p.m. in Moscow, and we're doing our regular stream, day 402 with Olexiy Arestovych. Good evening, Olexiy. Good evening, Mark, Kostya, and viewers. I promise I will not troll you about the 1st of April. I abandoned this entertainment a while ago. We indeed have 50,000 who joined us, and about 14,000 clicked the like button. Thank you, dear friends. But as always, please do not forget to share in your social media links to that stream so new viewers would come. We understand that it is Saturday, so people have other priorities, but still, if you can help us to bring more eyes to these materials, please do so. And click the like button, that helps to get this video promoted and suggested to more people out. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do that at Feygin Live, at Olexiy Arestovych, and of course, if you are watching or listening that in English, on the Privateer Station channel as well. Alright, then let's start with the news. There is some form of continuation. The topic of placement of nuclear armaments on the territory of Belarus. So-called president of Belarus interrupted his silence. We are not thinking he's a president. We understand the conundrum, but yeah, so-called president. He came out and said that this is a means to preserve Belarus sovereignty and the usual things. He even talked something about lesbians. So, yeah, that was weird. So, gays are bad, but lesbians, they haven't addressed this issue hard enough. That reminds a Soviet trolling poem. If the girl is beautiful and hot in bed, she's definitely also part of achievements of Brezhnev. That is all due to the party. So here he came out, and it's obvious that he was asked by Moscow to make this motion, and it was sort of a blackmail key that he brought up the topic about a peace treaty, about stopping supplies of armaments to Ukraine by the West. So this is generally what happened there. Tell us, what do you think about it? Well, Mark, there are two news here, a good and a bad one. The bad one is that Lukashenko completely turned into one of the voices of Russian psyop. He's totally playing out loud Russian narratives. Nobody is talking about him as a sneaky potato president. No, yeah, he just basically takes Russian rhetoric and regurgitates that out in the media sphere. So, it reminds an anecdote. Dear Clara, you know, if I'm being cut, I can survive, but if I'm being edited, I scream. So that's the thing with him. If that's the price that he needs to pay for non-participating in war, that is okay. So you think he's paying that price to not join the war? Yeah, I think so. I think he is not participating in the war, is not going to participate in the war. He is going for all these things to maintain his status quo. So do you not think that he is being sent as an errand boy by Putin's regime? Mark, Belarus army will not join this war. We are trolling him, of course. We're trolling their leader, so-called President Lukashenko. But as long as the Belarus army is not interfering into this conflict, we're good. We don't want to be killing our Belarus neighbors in this war. So Putin wants you to, though. Yeah, we know, but who cares about his wants? He wanted Kiev in 3 days, and he wanted to push NATO out to the borders of you know where, and now in a few days NATO will be all over his border. All right, look at that. We got 150,000 already with us. Let's go along the map, take a look at what's unfolding on the front. Let's start with the usual. The viewers are seeing the map now. Let's look at Bakhmut. It is a difficult situation there. A couple news. One is good, one is bad. The bad one is that situation is heavy, difficult. The battles are hard. And the good one is that these heavy fights are being carried by the backbone structure of Wagner on the Russian side. And we talked, remember, about different layers of fighters in Wagner. So they do have a core group of their people, and they never cared about the fluctuating team members, inmates, anybody else they had. But now they actually have to throw their real hardcore personnel. They have roughly about 6,000 of those. This is a super valuable resource in Wagner. They're very few, and when these 6,000 will be gone, they will have nothing else on that level. So Prigozhin, he basically started saying things in a style that we'll all die here, but we know that we will not die in vain because we opened new opportunities for Russia on this front. And since it is the group of very experienced soldiers on Wagner's side, of course, the fights are very fierce and very difficult, but at the same time, we are grinding them down. So the bad news, fighting is heavy. Good news, they threw the last serious reserve they had. All right. So, in your opinion, how you see that? Do you think Bakhmut will remain with Ukraine? It's difficult, Mark. One needs to know the exact correlation of powers on both sides, and it's difficult. So far, we are holding it. We have not seen the notes that our command would make a decision to give it up. But the fighting there is happening in the streets, and it's slowly pouring towards the center of the city. And Olexiy, if Ukrainian military withdraws from the town, there will be no tragedy, right? They'll just fall to the new fortifications. Exactly. There are foreign generals who are saying that they do not see any serious consequence for Ukrainian troops by removing themselves from Bakhmut and positioning themselves in new defense lines. But our president still wants us to hold that part of the front because this is a political card that is being played, and those people, those countries who are still on the fence about supporting Ukraine or not, losing Bakhmut can sway them in not the way we want them to be. And that's why military political leadership is called military political leadership, because one needs to understand both sides of the conflict, the actual physical conflict and also the political implications of that. So I think they can see better in our leadership, and for now the order is to hold. What about the other parts of the front? How is it there? The last couple of days, Mark, it was pretty difficult. From Crimea down to Avdiivka, the whole eastern front, pretty much on the whole line, there are attempts for active storming. And they're basically probing our defenses and trying to push through. So situation is difficult. What about the south? Anything there? In the Zaporozhye region, yeah, everything is a little quieter. Of course, there are some tactical skirmishes, but there's nothing similar to what's happening near Bakhmut. And in Kherson, of course, it's artillery duels, our peaceful citizens are dying, and we're countering their fire. In Avdiivka, last day, a boy that was born in 22 died, so basically an infant. And when we were wrapping up last stream, when Shahids were flying towards Kiev, they hit and we shot down 9 out of 10. S-300s cannot be intercepted, so they also shot up Kharkov at that time. So, yeah, this story is unfolding. And from Crimea to Avdiivka, it's Liman direction, it's Bakhmut direction, and they're trying to find solutions to several things, to capturing the city itself, to surrounding it on both sides, and also in Avdiivka. They are putting a lot of effort to try to make another Bakhmut. So do you think it is getting to be as bad as Bakhmut or not? They will definitely try to. We'll see how that happens. We'll see if they have enough resources aggregated to attempt that. Their politics is rather dumb, and we generally used to that, and we'll have to repeat certain things numerous times because they continue working on the same strategy. All right, very well. Let's proceed further. We have 200,000 with us, about 70,000 click the like button. Thank you for signaling that you are with us, and do not forget to subscribe. Today there is another topic that cannot be passed. A lot of news in Ukraine are filled with Metropolitan Pavel, with the Archbishop. So, do you think this man is already going through court? He already got punishment, that he'll be under house arrest. Do you think there's any role of Moscow affecting that? Even United Nations emissary said that this is not customary to follow so much with religious persecution. Mark, I have a question. What is religious persecution? He is being persecuted because he is religious in a certain way, or he's persecuted and he is also religious. And it implies that there would be a court that tells him, oh, you're a Christian of a certain denomination or you're Buddhist, and that's why we'll persecute you. But it's not that. It's when he is being accused of doing things that are offensive, that are definitely on the list of serious offenses in the times of war, and we could care less about his beliefs. I am a good example of that. So you will be persecuted only for violating criminal code. Are you a parishioner of one of those Russian Orthodox churches? No, I'm not. But if there were religious persecutions, one would find some way to attack even my group as well. I think everything in that story is not worth what's being told about it. We also are in a delicate position. If it was just you and me on the kitchen, I could have been blunt. So for now, I have to patch it up a little, and we cannot call him a criminal until the verdict is carried out. But a lot of people know what that Pasha is. So you think this is smoke without fire? Mark, we live here. We have our hand on the pulse of events here. How much did you not know in Samara when you were in the administration of that area? Well, I knew things even in Moscow, not only Samara. Yeah, so we know things too. But knowing and having a decision made by a court are two different things. So I would not be judging that case and providing certain remarks to that case. I'll let the court to come to a conclusion, which it already kind of did. They detained that guy for about 60 days. The court did not take away the right to turn to his parishioners, although district attorney, was actually looking for that too. Motivation was that he is following with his anti-Ukrainian propaganda in his sermons. As an example, he was asking for heavenly punishment on the heads of, or actually promised, not so much called upon, but promised these events to happen to president and his family. So in the country, in the middle of war for its survival, that's a very interesting activity. In other countries, he'll probably lose his head, but over here, I think most people can attack president and his leadership, even bloggers online and anybody in the street. Ukraine is a country of opportunities. So anyway, the court has him. He is under proceedings. Oh, I'll tell you another thing. He's not only wearing handcuffs. On one of the hands, he has the bracelet, Patek Philippe. So that's pretty expensive. Yeah, you have very modest priests there, right? And oh yeah, and again the scarf. Yeah, Louis Vuitton scarf, right? So an interesting character. Now, in the United States, there are even some voices worrying about that person, what's happening to it. So we need to make sure this whole case is very visible. All right, all right. Let's switch to a different topic now. We actually put that famous trip to Bucha as a background to our show. Von der Leyen, Borrell, and everybody else who saw that area right after the deoccupation happened, they were impressed with what they saw. So now the year passed. I think most things are already known. Not talking about individual details, who executed, who tied hands. The investigation will determine that. But the main effort, in my opinion, is already done. This is a war with genocide, with military criminal offenses and mass murder and other things. This is a pretty dirty war. My deceased grandma, who was a very full-bodied Jew, she was telling me that when those people who were in Belarus under German occupation, Germans were giving out porridge and food to those people who were captured. So that's why and that was during the First World War. So during the Second World War, many people didn't even think about running away because it was different, because they thought there'll be, again, food provided by one of the parties, whoever captures their village. And apparently it is a different war. This war is bloodier and much less civilized. So what would be your conclusions out of this? The activity of Russian military command against Ukraine is a chain of crimes against humanity, and they will be punished to the end, independently of the country carrying out the verdict or capturing the offenders. Our prosecution district attorney office is reviewing 74,000 criminal cases. Imagine that, right? Out of 300 invaders, 300,000, we have 74,000 criminal cases. So that means at least every third of the invading force has behaved so much that it became known, so wrong that it became known to our district attorneys, and how many cases we are not even aware of the details. So that's one. Actually, still one. It also gives us a lot information about the country, about the society in Russia under Putin, because he was perverting the country for years, and now there is a whole layer of killers, ill-behaved killers that are represented in this country. They've been trying to wash off that name, Russian soldier, but it will be impossible to wash it off in the near future. And one needs to say thank you to Vladimir Putin for that, because he is actually supportive of these crimes. And we know of some cases where Putin actually decreased the level of their responsibility for things they do during war, and promotion to the detachment that actually did all the shooting and killing in Bucha. When the 64th Mechanized Brigade that was doing most of the crimes in Bucha got an award from Putin to become elite guard unit. So he presented it to them as a support, as a vote of confidence for the crimes they've done there. So if the country like that, like Russia, can become ahead in the Security Council in the United Nations, maybe for a month, but still, that tells us a lot about this world that we live in. In the Security Council, right, of the United Nations, that they can preside over that there are people who support on the federal level the crimes against humanity and crimes against the Charter of United Nations. That tells us a lot about the world that we live in. And in Bucha, there were three waves of crimes, and that is very relevant. So the first one was when they were just entering and killing everything that moved. And the second one, when they understood that they cannot proceed to Kiev, but they were actively hunting down people by the lists, and they were capturing them, and that's where we see them taking these people and executing them and then burying them, and then in the mass graves. And the third one was when they were leaving, and they were raping and murdering before leaving that place. So there was military terror, systemless terror, and system terror. And this is somewhat being addressed today by our president, who in Bucha today said that there'll be a Bucha or Buchansky tribunal, and the first they'll be prosecuted by the national law of Ukraine, by the law that we practice here, that will be finding them. Then the second is International Criminal Court, and the third will be a special tribunal that is created on purpose for just a single event. A previous bright one of that was for Hitler, the tribunal that was set for him and his cronies for their crimes during the Second World War. So, yeah, as I'm saying, the grandfathers of these current Putin soldiers would spit in their faces if they could get out of the graves, because they were fighting so that war would never repeat again. And they did not only repeat it, they actually repeated it. Those people who are pointing at their grandfathers and saying that they're doing all these atrocities because of them, because of the memories. And I think these grandfathers, if they had a chance, they would have, their hand would not waver if they had a chance to get rid of these grandchildren of theirs that are fighting on Putin's side now. These grandfathers and mothers who were throwing themselves on the machine guns, who were trying to stop this horrible Second World War. These guys are doing exact opposite now. 70 years and the history made a full circle. These are the lessons of Bucha. I can only say we don't know exactly how many more Buchas we have not found yet on the occupied territories. We know on the operative level, or actually from the operative sources, that there are torture rooms pretty much in every occupied town, and there were places where there were mass executions. We hope that there will not be Bucha experience repeated anywhere, but still we understand that inevitably there will be some similar events that we'll discover. And under this light, it's impossible to start negotiating with these foes. I'm not even talking about China now. I'm talking about other voices internationally. This is basically a signal in this case. It's okay for them to do Bucha, but you, in this case, need not to continue pressing them. You just need to sit down and negotiate with them. That's it. And that's how we hear it in Ukraine. All these peace lovers in the West, those who try to push us to negotiate with Putin, we see them as the ones who are promoting several new Buchas. I understand, Olexiy. This topic of peacekeepers is a dual thing. And I'm not talking about peacemakers who are saying that military will be injected into the Ukraine's territory. I'm talking about the ones who are saying that they need to stop fighting and need to sit down and negotiate with Russia. I'm answering to that. The best way to negotiate would be to give us ATACMS and jets. That'll do for really awesome negotiations. All right. There is a little bit of time left. We have a few international topics that we need to address. We have a little bit of it left. So, North Korea, there was a whole series of news coming out of there, which we understand their color in general, but Kim Yo-jun is saying that the president of the sister of the president of the Korean leader, the sister of the Korean leader, is saying that president of Ukraine is risking his country, and he is willing to acquire nuclear weapons because of his ambitions. She also expressed opinion that Zelensky is wrong thinking that American nuclear umbrella can save Ukraine from Russian weapons. It looks like this blood-sucking family from North Korea maybe just describing themselves in this case in their statement, because where is Ukraine and where is North Korea? They missed a perfect chance to stay shut. But I think there could be a breeze coming from possible Chinese inclusion or participation in that conflict, either a negotiating party or in some other capacity. And I understand that Macron and Moore and the Spanish Prime Minister are going to see him. So, just like in Pulp Fiction, remember when they were sending the ugly one? So, yeah, it's here they're sending these uglies out on the international arena to make wicked statements. It's not their first statement from North Korea, it's a follow-up one. Do you have any strategy? Do you see they have any strategy? Because, of course, North Korea is owned by Beijing, basically. Or are these some horizontal relations between Moscow and North Korea? There was an announcement. I was laughing. I usually don't laugh too much, but this one made me. That the veterans of Korean War, I think Skabeeva and one of Putin propagandist channel mentioned that. So they have a guy, I think his name is Smatkov, that veterans of Korean War can come and fight in Ukraine. So we're calculating this war was at the end of 50s. Who's gonna come? They're probably all in their coffins. They're all dead. Any of them gonna get out and go to the front? Mark, this is from the Korean television picture. The one that was broadcasting internally that Korean soccer team won in the World Soccer Championship, or that their astronauts visited Sun. So President Zelensky is risking Ukraine life now, right? What can President Putin do so the risks would be gone, right? But he's pushing his nuclear threat. You think they're paddling this side? Okay, well, imagine he destroyed Ukraine. What will be with Belarus? What will be with Western Russia? It'll be unlivable. It will be the lost territory for everybody for dozens of years. And what will happen to Moscow, St. Petersburg? all the fallout in that area. How many people are in Russia are living on the European part of Russia? Not actually most of them, because if you cut pre-Urals part of Russia, that'll be most of Russians. Yeah, so after using a bit of tactical nukes on the front, that'll be it really. Right. Anything else you want to tell her? She might be listening. I don't think she is listening to herself, to us. I think she's listening to Putin's aides, who's been telling their internal audience that they captured all the Abrams, destroyed all the HIMARS, and yeah, in the best traditions of North Korea, that doesn't even have internet. All right, the head of Euro Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, became a contender to the post of the General Secretary of NATO, according to The Sun. It is stipulated that several countries offered her that position. However, they are saying that her candidacy may be blocked because of less than stellar work at the position of Minister of Defense in Germany. So we understand that these conversations were happening in Europe. One of the pretenders to that position is Boris Johnson. And how do you see that picture? Is it maybe competition of Europeans, Brits versus the mainland, or how good of an outcome would be one versus the other? Well, she herself expressed a very pro-Ukrainian, very hawkish in a good sense of meaning position towards Ukraine. If she maintains that, that'll be fantastic. Boris Johnson is another strong figure who was called a gruesome death of Moscow politologists. And he is generally driven and very emotional and very dedicated. So I think either candidate means a stream of additional energy that will be brought to all these affairs. Because the problem with many politicians is that the way they do it is even the flies around them want to die of boredom. Stoltenberg is a bright figure too, but he's a reserved bright figure. He's a Scandinavian. I don't know if that's cultural or not, but imagine Boris Johnson in that position. That'll be interesting to watch. And Ursula von der Leyen is also a very principled person with certain ethics, and it'll be interesting to see her in this position as well. And in general, for NATO, it's an interesting conundrum. A Brit or the German who'll be guiding NATO in the next period. I think Scandinavian was a remote third candidate. Personally, I'm in favor of both sides, because one way or another, it'll be good. So, from the point of view of accepting Ukraine to NATO, what if you look at it this way? All right, I think in this case, Johnson is a very strong proponent of Ukraine, even more than some Ukrainians, but Ursula von der Leyen is also very pro-Ukrainian. I don't know if she has personal sympathies, but as a cold strategist, she understands that if Russia, Iran, and China join their efforts about something, Ukraine cannot be left neutral. Ukraine needs to join NATO. Otherwise, it's suicidal for Europe. So, in this case, Johnson probably would be a brighter figure because he would be fighting for Ukraine globally. But, you know, big politics is an interesting animal where too much good means not good. So, it has to be reserved and methodical. But I think under Johnson it would be more entertaining, and von der Leyen is also good, so I'm rooting for both sides. Right? At least I'm saying that for Moscow this is a choice between leprosy and Black Death. I suggest a compromise here, Mark. Which one? Both. Leprosy and Black Death. All right. So there are a few more statements. Some of them originated in Ukraine and they were retranslated in other parts of the world. So Kuleba came out and made a statement that one should not be putting too many hopes in the Ukrainian counteroffensive that it will be the last-ditch effort. So there is a sort of a maximization overall of tasks for Ukraine. And in that position, framing Ukraine into a small picture where they need to achieve and answer everything is not productive. That Ukraine will actually have more time and more resource to do more counteroffensive maneuvers. At the same time, Mark Milley made a statement that Ukraine will not be able to push Russia completely out of its occupied territories. He said that Russia, it doesn't seem like it can happen this year. Exactly, and that's what I was talking about before, that there likely will be a second counteroffensive and third counteroffensive. And I think it is being understood, but regardless of the scale of our counteroffensive, it may change situation on a couple of operative directions. For example, conditionally, let's name it Mariupol or Crimea or Lugansk or some other region. But on a couple of these directions, we can change situation drastically. But yet there are 5 directions like that. So in order to totally clean it up, we'll need to throw more effort on the front. And we're very thankful to Germany for providing additional monetary help till 2032. And it's a long story, but it's a lot of numbers and billions of dollars to support. They understand, that means that they do understand that this is important. And I do want to calm down our viewers that it's not the war that will go to 2032, but it is just a long story that needs support. And hearing that our allies are saying that they will continue supplying us with as much as needed resources, this is very welcoming. Because even if we have a very successful counteroffensive, in 2 or 3 months our troops will be tired and we'll need to rotate them to rebuild their capabilities. We'll need a lot more armaments to replace or repair the ones. It's just everybody wants bright victories. It's spring, it's motion. And yeah, of course, Olexiy, the people are excited and they want to see something. Right, we've been in defense probably since November, and people do want victories. We did win several victories already. Russians withdrew from Kiev, Sumy, Chernigov, and Kharkov. Kharkov-Lugansk operation and Kherson operation. So people have seen that, and now they want more. And one thing is that people want, the other is that there is a public opinion that's also on the same side. And this is the task of our military, to liberate the whole territory of Ukraine. So all these conversations about perhaps not, or we also should remember that our constitution actually has it written that we are untouchable, the territory is ours, untouchable, undivisible, so we need to get it back anyway. And those who disagree with this, then they run into very serious consequences in the long perspective. But we do understand that counteroffensive may take waves. It might likely will be the first wave, the second wave, the fourth wave. And we already saw leopards and challengers in Ukrainian colors. We are standardizing the shells, standardizing the equipment to make sure we can use them across different equipment. This offensive will be bright, it will be memorable, we will love it, our enemy will not. Those allies of ours that support us from the West, they definitely will be more excited, but we'll need to use that point to be able to conduct, to acquire new resources to conduct the second counteroffensive and the third if need be. And then we need to also negotiate with the remnants of Russia to make sure that this military aggression will not be possible in the next 5 years and then 10 years. So it's a long story, and we're thankful to Germans for providing us with this aid. Thank you, everybody who are doing that. We'll fight a bit more. All right. We are about 40 minutes live. We have 283,000 viewers with us, over 110,000 click the like button. You think we can put a different metric there to try to engage them to click it more? We'll see. We'll ask. But guys, again, if you see that, please share that in social media and subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station. The last piece of news that I want to bring, and it's always or often a funny one. The agricultural parcels in Crimea will be given to all those who are fighting on the front, including the volunteers. Mentioned the head of Crimean parliament, and I'm adding here for myself, military criminal Konstantinov, that all of these parcels will be given to people in the shoreline area. So I'm thinking, are they going to use them in these trenches or what? Well, frankly, they'll just, I suspect many of these fighters, so-called occupants, will be, actually will remain in these plots. They'll have their personal little, personally sized plots at the end of our offensive. And are participating in that conflict. On the Ukrainian side, we suspect that those people who are fighting for Ukraine would actually get their land there. Because I do suspect that when we kick Putin's army out, some of our troops would want to move there and live in Crimea for some time, 200-300 years, and then they'll figure it out later. Yeah, I just want to say that the whole feeling of that news that Russia published is weird. It's like a feast during the Black Death, because they are digging trenches along the shoreline, and at the same time they're screaming that they're giving away the plots of land right by the shore. And they're also trying to pacify local citizens that see the veterans will be digging around you. But I think at their capacity, they need to concentrate on other things. Last thing that Russian soldier is thinking about Melitopol or Takhmak is he going to get a plot in Crimea or not? What he is waiting really is HIMARS falling on his head. Everything else is not so exciting. All right. I think we'll continue on Monday, right? It is Saturday, right? We'll continue on Monday at 10 p.m. Kiev time. These days it's the same time, in the same time zone. And it's only European countries and Ukraine that are jumping and changing times. But we will be waiting for you to join us on Monday. In the next stream, please continue sharing, liking, and subscribing. Feygin Live, Olexiy Arestovych, and Privateer Station. Thank you, and see you on Monday. Goodbye.